What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. I am so excited about today's video because we're going to be doing a complete garden walkthrough tour of what the garden looks like in July. Now, we did a video yesterday, and the reason why we're doing this video today is because of two reasons. Number one is you guys asked for kind of more of a narrated version, a longer length walkthrough. And then you guys said, I would love the montage, but I would really love a narrated walkthrough first. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna narrate and walk through all the different things that are going on in the garden. And then I will show you the montage after. The second reason why we're making this video is because it's going to be a longer length video, over 10 minutes. The reason why we're doing that is because no one saw the video we uploaded yesterday. It's really troubling to me and it's really bothering. I was actually speaking with a couple other people, a couple other content creators and YouTubers that are very near and dear to my heart, but I didn't ask them for permission to mention them in this video, and so I won't. But I was speaking with them last night and they all said that they can verify that longer length videos over 10 minutes, preferably around 15 minutes, are being prioritized by YouTube, and shorter length videos are just not even being shown. And this has been true time and time and time again. We uploaded the video where we were talking about the most organic pest control method being a butterfly net, and that video really didn't need to be that long. So it was about right around 5 minutes and 30 seconds. That video got hit with about 50% less viewership. We uploaded yesterday the garden tour video in July, and it was an amazing montage. It took me 3 hours to edit the video. I actually made the song myself. That song is actually a sample track that I made, and I took the time to do that because I wanted an incredible experience for you guys. And it's so discouraging for a content creator to just not even be shown to people and have people have the option to view your video because it was only 6 minutes long. And it's so disappointing to me because I was here on YouTube, on the platform, before the whole advertising thing became popular. I was here because I was passionate about what I was doing. I wanted to show you guys what I was doing, and longer length videos and shorter length videos were getting the same amount of opportunity to be viewed. And what's so frustrating to me is that all you have to do is follow the money trail. YouTube, all they care about right now is just advertisers. Is your video advertiser friendly? How many ads can we put on your videos? And then let's prioritize the videos that get more ad slots. And that's so frustrating for me because, we're not about the money here. We're about the viewership. And a lot of you guys will say, yeah, well, if you're about the viewership, why care about how many people watch your video? Because that's viewership. If one video that's 10 minutes long, or 10 minutes and 1 second, gets 40,000 views, but yet a video that gets that's 6 minutes long gets 8,000 views, that's 5 times less views. 5 times less views simply because you rambled for 4 minutes longer. It does not mean the quality of content is better. It just means that you're going over 10 minutes and you're being favored, and that's so disappointing to me because I really felt like YouTube was a place of open dialogue and open format, and I just thought it was a platform that was accepting of different types of content creators, not just ones that rambled for 10 minutes. And not all content that is 10 minutes long is rambling, but here I am rambling. Okay, anyways, rant over. Let's go check out the garden. So starting right off here with the beans. Now the beans have been super successful this year and they look incredible. They still have a ways to grow before they fruit, but based on how they look right now, I can tell you they're gonna do really well. So we've had awesome success with almost all of our varieties. The only one that we had trouble with was the garbanzo. And that's because we planted them actually right where there was a couple ant hills. Ants in the garden are something that we fight off on a yearly basis. People always ask, what do we do to get rid of ants? Well, we really don't. When they decide to make a home here in our bed, they do, and there's not really a whole lot we can do about it. You can sprinkle cinnamon and that works for a little bit. You can flood the bed on a weekly basis and that works for a little bit, but then it floods your plants and they die from root rot. It's just a never-ending battle, and so we pretty much just said, you know what, this spot here, we're gonna grow what we can grow. There's 2 ant hills right here, and it's really kind of messed up the germination rates on the garbanzo beans because they actually eat the seeds. The ants actually will eat the seeds once they start to soften and start to germinate. They eat them for food, and it's like so annoying. The other way to get around that is by pre-soaking your beans. Had I known that there was an anthill here, I would have pre-soaked my beans so they would have germinated faster, and that way they would have been sprouting and growing before ants could recognize them as a food source. And I didn't do that, and that would have definitely helped to prevent some of the losses here in this little strip where the anthills are. Other than that though, as you can see, the bed looks incredible. It's nice and full. It's going to be producing tons of beans, and I can't wait to see all the diversity here. There's like, I think 12 or 13 different varieties of beans here, or actually more. I think there's like 16 varieties of beans in this bed. And so it's going to be so cool to see. But yep, beans are doing really well. So the onions look absolutely incredible. Now, normally when we get a late start to our garden, which is this year, we got a very late start, the onions usually are the thing that are the most affected because their bulbing cycle is based on daylight periods, photosensitivity. And so if you get them in the garden later, their bulbing cycle starts at the same time, so they're typically smaller, usually about 20 to 25% smaller, which is a pretty big amount. You know, if it's a pound, you're talking about a quarter pound less in weight. And so usually we have a smaller onion bulb, but that does not seem to be the case. I think we're actually going to end up with just pretty much normal sized onions this year. And I attribute that to starting them earlier than we do normally indoors. So I think it kind of just balanced out, which is great. As far as the potatoes go, amazing. Everyone we've spoken to says that our potatoes are 1 or 2 months further ahead than theirs. I was even talking to my grandpa the other day, and he said that his potatoes just sprouted, which is so incredible because it's like July, and to have potatoes just sprouting is super, super, super late to the ball game. Luckily, potatoes don't take that long to mature, and he should still be fine, but ours have already flowered and are already starting to die off to produce fully grown potatoes that we can harvest. So really happy about that, and I can attribute that to the fact that we're growing in raised beds. Raised beds allow us to plant sooner because they dry out sooner, because they drain better, and they also warm up sooner. So even if you have a really cold season, your beds warm up and thaw out so you can plant them sooner. And that allows you the ability to grow sooner, which gives you a sooner harvest, meaning you're going to be far better off in the long run. So I can attribute that to raised beds. It's definitely been the best asset to growing potatoes that we can really attribute to our success. As far as the strawberries go, we're still finding some here and there. Here's a nice, beautiful one here, but it's coming to an end. I mean, it's really, really winding down. They're still delicious, still amazing. I mean, I'm not complaining. There's slim pickings. There's a lot of ones that have kind of gone bad. Birds have either gotten to them or they've sunburnt because the sun is so harsh this time of year that usually, June bearing strawberries usually don't last until mid-July. So we've kind of been blessed with that, with a later harvest that's gone later into the season because the sun has not been as hot. But now that the sun has heated up, we're getting days into the mid-80s, almost on a consistent basis. A lot of the berries are starting to burn. So the ones that are underneath some of this foliage, they've been saved, but a lot of these ones are starting to get burnt here. So there's another one. Oh, nope, that one got burnt. So we got right around 20 pounds, which is an awesome harvest for 2 beds. We definitely got more berries from the newer bed than the older bed. And what that tells me is that the older bed is time to turn over. So what we're going to do is later in the season, we're going to pull this entire bed up. We're going to rip up all the plants. We're going to re-amend the soil because that's probably what's happened is over time the soil has dropped down significantly, which I can see actually is the case. It's dropped down significantly. It's become degraded, and it's time to re-amend, and it's time to refill the bed up, and it's also time to thin out and replant. We're going to put in healthy plants in here in the not late fall, but early fall, with enough time for them to get established, for the roots to get developed, and then that way they're going to start in spring. They're going to be able to produce better in the spring. They're not going to be competing against as many plants, and they're also going to be growing in soil that's re-amended and is fertile again. And you typically want to do that about every 3 years. Strawberry farmers that do this commercially, they typically go every 2 years. So we're lucky to get an extra year out of our beds, but it's time. When this bed here is 2 years old and this bed here is 3 years old, but yet this newer bed produces 15 pounds of berries, but this bed here only produces 5, and it's the same square footage, it's a clear sign that something needs to change, and that's really what it is. It's just running its course. The age of the bed is time to turn over. So that's what we're going to do, and it'll be a fun project. The peas have done really, really well this year. One of the things that we did this year was we planted a variety that we don't normally get to plant here in Michigan, in the springtime at least, and that is sugar snap. So we planted sugar snap because we saw the forecast was going to be colder than average, and so we were able to grow a variety that liked cooler weather. Sugar snap is a very cold-loving variety, and it does not do well in heat at all. And that's normally why for spring plantings we plant Lincoln or Mammoth snow melting, because they can handle the hotter weather that we get here in Michigan in early spring. Like I said before, in spring we get like 1 or 2 weeks of spring weather, and the rest is either winter or summer weather. And it's nice if you like warm weather. You know, your summer crops go in early and everything matures really nice here in Michigan. But the problem is that stuff like the peas, they'll just fry and bake, which is what they're doing now. But, you know, we got 2 months of spring weather, which normally we only get like 2 weeks. So really happy with the length of our spring this year. It's allowed us to grow the sugar snap, and it's been such a productive one that it's been a nice change. But again, we'll probably plant this variety again in the fall once things cool down, because it's such a sweet and versatile pea that I absolutely love it. Not to mention, it's gotten so tall because normally we only get our pea plants to grow up about 2 or 3 feet before they start producing and harvesting. However, these sugar snaps, they produce so long into the season, and they really grow pretty well that we've gotten about 5 to 5.5 foot tall plants that are just kind of falling and cascading over. And so they've kind of taken over this space here. The cilantro has also gone to seed, and we're just letting the pollinators have fun with that for a little bit. And then we're gonna pull everything up to replant, because this much cilantro going to seed would be a big mistake. This is the opalka. And as you can see, we are just loaded down. The opalkas are just starting to come on. They're a little later to size up, but they're getting really nice size, and the trusses on these are beautiful. They're just so loaded down this year with tomatoes. The Afghan orange is just starting to produce a little later, more like a pumpkin tomato, as they call them. It's a really thick ribbed tomato, absolutely beautiful. We've got nice clusters of fruit all up and down these plants. As you can see, there's no shortage of fruit or flowers, and plants look super healthy. The Typhon Mennonite is producing some nice sized tomatoes, real hefty. However, the amount of them is not as many, and that's just, you get that with each variety. Each variety has its fruiting limits, and you'll see here there's a lot of flowers, but the amount of flowers does not always equate to 100% fruit set. A lot of these flowers here flowered, but they just didn't set fruit. And that's just kind of one of those things you look at. But the fruits that are on are pretty big, and I'm guessing by the time they are ready to harvest, they're gonna be at least 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds. They're gonna be big tomatoes. Now, the one that I wanted to show you was the Gold Rush Currant. We've actually harvested about 4 or 5 tomatoes from this plant already, and the trusses of flowers are just incredible. I mean, just beautiful, and they're so long and lanky. I mean, look at this one. It's like almost a foot from the tomato plant, and it's just producing the most beautiful tomatoes. They're very, very small in size, but they're really sweet and really flavorful. So it's just such a cool plant. I absolutely love this one. It just is it's a really interesting fruiting pattern, and not the most disease resistant, which is why we have it pruned up so high, but it definitely makes up for it in beauty for sure. So here is a tomato that you guys have all been asking for updates on. Ever since I showed this tomato, you guys have been begging for updates, and this is the red centiflora. As you can probably see, the results of this tomato are just astounding. I mean, just breathtaking. This right here is one cluster of flowers, a solid cluster of flowers. There is about 600 flowers on this one truss of flowers here. Now, they don't all set fruit. You have good fruit set. There's quite a few fruits on here, but this is not all going to fruit. If it did, the plant would probably die. But it's just absolutely incredible how much fruit can be produced. There will be at least 200 fruits on this truss here that will set fruit. So that's 200 tomatoes on one truss. Coming up here, you can see again with just how massive these trusses of flowers are. Coming up here, another one. This one's just getting started. And then there's another one here, and the plant just keeps producing. It's actually an indeterminate, so it keeps producing these all up and down the plant. It's one of the most productive tomatoes in the world, and it's just so absolutely beautiful to watch and see all the flowers that come on. But again, this tomato gets its name because centa, meaning 100, and flora, meaning flower, it basically is short for 100 flowers. And in this case, there's 600 to 700 flowers on one truss. Total, there's probably close to 2,000 or 3,000 flowers on this single tomato plant. As you can see, our garlic is ready to harvest. We're gonna be harvesting it either today or tomorrow, but one of these days we gotta get it pulled up before the rains come because it is ready to come out of the garden, and we don't want to risk mold or rot happening when the rains come. So we gotta get it pulled up while the weather is still dry. Now the question we always get is, Luke, when can I tell that my garlic is ready to harvest? The answer is when 2 or 3 sets of leaves start to die. You want 2 or 3 sets of leaves to start to die because that forms the skin around the garlic, but you don't want the entire plant to die. Otherwise, each leaf that dies back forms a skin. And the problem with that is too many skins, too many layers of skin holds on to too much moisture, and that causes your bulbs to actually rot from the inside out. It holds on to just too much of that moisture, it insulates it, rather than allowing it to dry and cure properly. So what we want is just 2 or 3 layers of skin to be formed that protects the garlic from drying out, but it doesn't hold on to too much moisture. So 2 or 3 is kind of the golden ticket there to having successful garlic for a long period of time. And like I said, we're gonna be pulling this up pretty soon. So chances are, if you live in the Midwest, you planted garlic last fall, garlic is usually ready for harvest right around mid-July, and it's mid-July, so it's time to pull it out. Get ready, because you're gonna be pulling yours out too. Another plant that has really been blowing my mind has been this pie tomato. Now the pie tomato is actually a tomato that's typically grown in the mountain regions of Italy, and it's usually grown in volcanic soil, and they use these for making pizza sauce. This plant is super productive, and I cannot wait to try these tomatoes on a pizza. One of the things about this tomato is they can be used for sun-dried tomatoes, they can be used for fresh tomatoes, but they can also be used for like roasting, like a nice roasted tomato. And it's such a versatile tomato that I'm so excited to give this one a shot. And then we also have the San Marzano. Now the San Marzano is probably one of the most productive paste tomatoes that we have here in the garden right now. It is just absolutely laden with tomatoes. I cannot wait to get these off the plant and start making some pizza sauce with these, because these are one of the most highly sought after tomatoes for pizza sauce. And if you make a Neapolitan style pizza, this is one that you need. Roast these up, peel the skin off, mill it down, crush it up, or however you want to put it on the pizza. But these right here are required for Neapolitan style pizza. The kale has been something else. I cannot believe how beautiful the kale looks this year. You know, we tried different varieties of kale in the past, but I'd never known about how much diversity was out there in terms of kale that was edible and palatable. There's lots of decorative kale out there, but I was unaware of just how many edible varieties of kale there are. And the decorative varieties of kale, you know, the more pretty ones, the ones that are like multicolored and stuff like that, those are still edible too, but they're very bitter and they're not typically grown for table fare. These ones, however, are all grown for table fare purposes: salads, soups, stews, kale chips, things like that. I mean, these are all edible and delicious varieties of kale, and the varieties are just astounding. Check it out. So this right here is the blue curled Scotch kale. It's one of the prettiest kales that I have ever seen. I absolutely just love how frilly and tightly wound all these leaves are, and they're just absolutely beautiful. And believe it or not, we've been harvesting from this. It doesn't even look like we've harvested from it, but that's just how incredible this plant is. This right here is the scarlet kale, one of our favorite varieties of kale, one of the most cold hardy varieties of kale. Absolutely beautiful and incredible leaf structure. This is a new one we're trying. It's called Fractal Frills. This is just a truly beautiful, I'm definitely rivaling the blue curled Scotch kale. I absolutely am just blown away by how beautiful this kale is. But it is just something else. I mean, in terms of just the leaf structure and texture, it just looks like something from the ocean. You know, it just looks like almost like coral or some type of just like seaweed or something. It's just so absolutely beautiful. So this is called Fractal Frills. And then we have something called Dazzling Blue. Now this is just like the counterpart of the Lacinato, only it's been bred with a red Russian. So you get the reddish pink hue in the veins rather than just the standard green in the veins of the Lacinato. However, Lacinato is always going to be our favorite kale to grow because of its multi-purpose use. You can use it in pretty much any application, and it's incredible. Not to mention it produces all summer, even into the hot parts of summer, and it still does not get bitter even in the heat of summer. The last two things that I want to highlight are the cucumbers and the zucchini. So in the montage that I'm about to roll, we harvested a little cucumber, or a little potato cucumber, that looks like a little russet potato. A lot of you guys were asking what that was, and that's what that was. It almost looks like a mini cantaloupe, but it's an amazing variety of cucumber that we're gonna be growing every single year because of just how sweet and crisp it is. It's an amazing, amazing variety. Despite the skin being a little tougher, it's got great flavor and it's definitely worth growing every single year. The other cucumber we've been harvesting from has been the Boston Pickling. Absolutely love this variety. It just is such a champ. It produces so much and the vines just continue growing all season. So definitely a great one to grow. And then in terms of the zucchinis have been just mind-blowing this year. You know, we've gotten so many off these plants so early that it's kind of surprising for even having a late start. They're right at where they're normally at, and they produced more than they normally do at this time of year. So really happy about that. But I think part of that is due in part to the mild weather. You know, zucchinis, they suffer from blossom end rot. If the weather gets too hot, the pollen in the flowers die back and you get a lot of rotted flowers. And so because it's been so mild in the low to mid 70s for so long, we've had really good fruit set. And I think that's definitely attributed, well, not I think, it definitely has attributed to way more fruit production than we normally get. Everything has been just incredible, and it truly is like living in a dream. And that's what inspired this video that I'm about to roll. This montage is one that I really put together because I want you guys to be able to experience just how I feel every single time I walk into the garden. You know, these videos don't do a whole lot of justice for the garden and what's going on in the garden at this time of year, because from a camera's perspective, you can only capture so much. You know, and people, when they come in the garden, they're just taken back. You know, it's just such a beautiful garden. It's so productive. There's so much diversity. There's so much going on that it's almost impossible to capture it all in a single video. And so I tried my best with this montage, and it was really meant to just inspire you guys to get out there and make your garden your dream. You know, we envisioned this garden looking like this 3 years ago when we put it in. And every single year we say, wow, would we have done anything different? Because I don't think we would have. And the answer is no. I mean, this is just the perfect garden. It's the perfect size. It's the perfect construction. It's the perfect layout. Everything is just so perfect about it, and I'm just so happy with it. And so I want to encourage you guys to go out there, envision what your perfect garden is, and chase that dream and make it a reality, because it really is attainable and it's so worthwhile. So enjoy the montage that I put together. And if you guys have not yet subscribed, make sure to do that. I'd encourage you guys to subscribe because there's so much more coming out, including the garlic harvest video. So, all right, I'll catch you guys on tomorrow's episode. Grow big or go home. Roll the montage.
Let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream. And you would naturally, as you began on this adventure of dreams, you would fulfill all your wishes. And after several nights, you would say, wow, that's pretty great. But now let's have a surprise. Then you would get more and more adventurous, and you would make further and further out gambles as to what you would dream. Finally, you would dream where you are now.